The new token HEMI just went absolutely ballistic and vertical, up over 5x since its launch on August 30th. Is it too late to buy? The short answer is it's not about being too late. It's about whether or not this move was pure exchange listing, sort of sugar high, or the start of a real Bitcoin and ETH super network narrative. We're going to cut this up. We're going to dive in. We're going to look at the technical analysis for this thing too. So stick around. But let's jump in and take a look right away at the coin market cap. So you can see this is from the beginning of its launch. It's up to 16 cents now. When it released, it was a little bit above just 1 penny. It's done in 1 week, 260%, which is absolutely nuts. Volume has been ripping into the hundreds of millions, and a fresh Binance spotlight has sort of taken over with 100 million Hemi being airdropped, plus obviously the spot listing, which has been huge. That's the kind of event that turns timelines pretty much feral, especially for this one. So if you're feeling some FOMO, good. Let's put a scalpel to this thing. I want to back up a little bit and explain what Hemi is on a high level. So it's a modular network that is trying to fuse Bitcoin's security with ETH's programmability. Think a Bitcoin-aware EVM with a sort of native tunnel system for assets and state between Bitcoin and Ethereum, plus a scheme to inherit Bitcoin finality. A lot of buzzwords. Let me translate it for you. It's basically a DeFi that actually sees Bitcoin on chain and settles against it. So EVM is just the Ethereum virtual machine, and finality is just the point at which a transaction cannot be reversed. Let's dive into why it kind of mooned. And there's a couple of reasons, really. There's the Binance airdrop that I just mentioned. So 100 million Hemi, which is 1% of the supply, was distributed to BNB eligible users. That's instant awareness and distribution. There is also a Binance spot listing. So Hemi USDT, USDC just opened up here today. The Binance effect is definitely real. That brings in new liquidity, new eyeballs. That gives it a basically violent repricing, which we're seeing. And it's also listed on MEXC and Gate. So huge listings right away. I think the other big takeaway here is the narrative fit. The market is sort of hunting BTCFi primitives. Anything bridging BTC security to EVM user experience does for sure have tailwinds, and that has kind of driven the price. So the market cap's already up to 163 million. It's doubled in the last 7 days. The volume is absolutely ridiculous. Let me talk really quick about sort of how Hemi works at a high level so you understand what this is before potentially investing any money into it. The Hemi VM is basically just an EVM that embeds the full Bitcoin node view. So contracts can sort of reference Bitcoin state directly, if that makes sense. That's different from typical bridges that rely on oracles or custodians. And the tunnels thing that I mentioned earlier is just Hemi's cross-chain portability system to move assets and contracts between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Hemi with minimized trust. So protocol level plumbing, think of it that way. And then the super finality is Hemi checkpoints to Bitcoin. So finality inherits BTC security over a few hours while still interfacing with ETH settlement. So I know that's super technical, but if they execute this, this unlocks Bitcoin aware DeFi primitives, Bitcoin settled perps options, Bitcoin collateralized lending. This isn't just sort of wrapped paper. It's a app that in a sense reads Bitcoin state natively. So this could potentially be really huge if they do execute up on all of this. That's the important thing to take away here. So now that we kind of understand what Hemi is at a high level, and we've taken a look at the coin market cap, they obviously have a huge following on X as well. More importantly, this thing has pumped. Obviously, let's take a look at the chart. Again, this just released, so you have to be aware that price action is still trying to find where it should be, and it needs to play out. Another also reminder is that there is supply overhang. There is a release schedule and unlock schedule, so that will give this thing selling pressure. The most important thing to take away from the chart, I mean, if you look at it on a weekly, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just straight up candles zooming back out to the 4-hour, which I thought was the most useful way to look at this currently, the main thing that I sort of see initially taking a look at this, obviously, the most important thing is higher lows, right? So you have higher lows, higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. And now with the listings, this has absolutely skyrocketed. All of those things are really good and positive for the price action. The one thing that I immediately noticed just with this fib retracement is that it perfectly hit the 0.382, not perfectly, but almost on the first retrace, and has hit the 1.618 on this latest pump. This could be your sort of textbook motive impulse. So what I mean by that is a sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you can imagine, this is your first impulse, then you have your, let's say this is the cap. This is 3. This should be the strongest wave technically. So maybe it goes a little bit higher, but let's say this is it. You would want whatever retest here to not go below the top of the first wave. So let's say something right here, and then you would have wave 5 maybe to the 2 standard deviation fib retracement, and then you would expect a sort of ABC corrective phase, which would normally be something like that. And this to me looks textbook. So if you are trying to accumulate for the long term, if you believe in this project, I think definitely wait for a retracement. Again, this could be the middle of the third impulse wave. That remains to be seen, but it did reject pretty hard off the 1.618 here. So follow the price action. What you definitely don't want to see is this thing falling below this last swing high. So if it falls below there and closes, that's a pretty bad sign. That's a sign of exhaustion, that this was not a true breakout or a true second leg, I guess is a better way to put it. But this is super interesting. I think the project is super interesting. And I'm definitely keeping HEMI on the watch list, even though they've already launched on Binance and MEXC, obviously, and Gate. They're on crypto.com as well. You know, there's still a big number of centralized exchanges that they can go after, namely Coinbase, right? So if they do get listings on something like Coinbase, you better believe that the price will be front ran, and this thing potentially could go higher. So the important thing for me to note is just their execution. Can they execute on their roadmap here? And that is going to be the most important thing, obviously, on top of the listings and everything else. That's pretty much it for HEMI. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, super interesting project. The price action definitely bullish, definitely reflects sort of the listing mania and hype. But be cautious out there, as with any of these. I've seen a ton of tokens take off on listing hype, merely to sort of bleed and die over the next couple of weeks and months and go back to the lows. So as always, do your own research. This isn't financial advice, but I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, you know what to do. I'm not even going to ask you for it. And as always, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.